In 1873, an Eastern Orthodox scholar named Philotheos Bryennios was digging through a dusty library in Constantinople when he found a manuscript. This text had vanished for nearly 2 millennia. As researchers examined the Greek writing, they realized it predated all 4 Gospels. To understand why this document matters, we have to rewind to the 1st century. Jesus of Nazareth has ascended, and the New Testament does not yet exist. Scattered groups of believers were popping up across the Roman Empire without a centralized Bible or professional clergy to guide them. This created a massive logistical problem. How are they supposed to actually practice this new faith in their daily lives? The discovered text, the Didache, fills that vacuum. It skips the high theology to serve as a gritty, day-to-day survival manual for the early church. The manual starts by forcing new recruits to make a stark, non-negotiable choice. The path fractures cleanly into 2 directions, the way of life and the way of death. Walking the way of life required a radical shift in behavior. Members were commanded to bless those who cursed them, love their enemies, and give freely to anyone who asked. The way of death was a direct rejection of the Roman status quo. The text explicitly outlaws common practices like magic, astrology, and abortion. Even their extreme generosity had a practical limit. The Didache includes a highly specific instruction: let your charity sweat in your hands until you know exactly who is receiving it. This strict moral code functioned as an active community defense mechanism. It ensured these small pockets of believers would not be assimilated into the surrounding Roman culture. Once initiated, members followed specific daily and weekly rhythms. For baptism, the text preferred cold running water, but allowed for warm water or even pouring water over the head if resources were scarce. Then came the fasting requirements. Members were ordered to fast strictly on Wednesdays and Fridays. This calendar reveals the calculated strategy behind those days. Traditional religious leaders, who the text calls hypocrites, fasted on Mondays and Thursdays. Moving the fast to Wednesdays and Fridays was a deliberate way to separate the community from outside factions. Members were also required to recite the Lord's Prayer 3 times every day, and the Eucharist was strictly restricted to the baptized. By synchronizing these specific routines, the Didache allowed isolated groups across the empire to forge a unified, undeniable identity. As this underground movement grew, it attracted Christ traffickers, grifters using the new faith to secure free lodging and food. The Didache solved this with strict math. A traveling prophet was welcome to stay for 1 day, or 2 if necessary. If he stayed for a 3rd, he was labeled a false prophet. There was also a hard financial boundary. If a traveling prophet asked for money or silver, he was deemed a fraud. To permanently fix the power dynamic, the text instructed communities to elect their own local bishops and deacons, specifically seeking humble men who were not greedy for money. Establishing these local leaders and neutralizing traveling con artists was the crucial pivot. It transitioned Christianity from a wandering, vulnerable sect into an established, self-governing institution. All of this intense discipline was driven by one overriding motivation. These early Christians believed the end of the world was imminent. The final chapter warns of a coming deceiver and a trial by fire. It lists 3 specific signs in the sky that would signal the resurrection: an opening in the heavens, the sound of a trumpet, and the dead rising. Eventually, the Didache vanished from history. It was overshadowed once the New Testament canon was finalized, and the Church no longer needed a scrappy survival manual. The 1873 rediscovery is vital because it provides the granular operations manual for the early Church. It records the specific, day-to-day instructions that the Bible's broader narratives do not contain. The Didache reveals that early Christianity succeeded by adopting a rigorous organizational blueprint. These protocols provided the internal structure needed to turn a wandering, vulnerable movement into a lasting institution.